They say the Appalachian Mountains are old, older than bones, older than names. But no one tells you what still breathes inside them. Hikers vanish. Towns appear where maps say nothing exists. Voices whisper from hollow cabins. Singing floats through the night air with no mouth to sing it. And sometimes, the forest stares back. In this video, I'll share 10 true-style horror stories from deep within Appalachia, each one told by someone who lived it or barely survived it. From vanishing brothers and cursed trails to gatherings that were never meant for outsiders. This isn't folklore. It's a warning. If you love real-sounding horror that crawls under your skin and won't let go, subscribe now, turn on notifications, and brace yourself. These aren't just stories. They're the kind of things that still echo in the trees. The first time I heard the singing, I thought it was just the wind moving through the hills. But it wasn't the wind. I was staying in my cousin Aaron's cabin deep in the Appalachian backwoods, helping him fix up the place before winter. It was isolated. No cell service, no neighbors, and the closest gas station was over 45 minutes away. Peaceful during the day, unnerving after dark. That first night around 1:30 a.m., I was reading by the fireplace when I heard it. Faint, melodic singing drifting through the window. It was so soft I thought I imagined it. But when I stepped outside, the cold hit me like a slap, and the singing was clearer, high-pitched, slow, like a woman humming a lullaby. The hills echoed with it, but I couldn't tell where it came from. I asked Aaron about it the next morning. He laughed it off. Just the ridges playing tricks. Sound travels weird out here, he said, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. The next night it happened again. Same time, same tune. I recorded it on my phone, but when I played it back the next morning, nothing. Just wind and static. That's when the unease really began to settle in. On the third night, I decided to follow the sound. I grabbed my flashlight and jacket, stepped outside, and walked toward the hills behind the cabin. The air was sharp, pine and rot mixing in my nose. The singing grew louder the deeper I went. It was beautiful. Too beautiful. Like it was meant to lull me in. Every few minutes I'd stop and whisper, "Hello?" No reply, just more singing. About 20 minutes in, I found a clearing. My flashlight caught something pale. Cloth hanging from a low tree branch. It looked like an old-fashioned nightgown, weather-worn and swaying gently. I called out again, louder this time. The singing stopped. Suddenly, everything was still. The woods around me, moments ago alive with insects and distant owls, went dead silent. Then, a crack of a branch behind me. I spun around. No one. Just trees and shadows. I backed away, keeping the clearing in my light's edge, heart pounding in my chest. Then the singing started again, behind me. Not from the hills anymore, but close. Too close. I ran. Branches slapped my face and legs. I tripped twice, scraped my palms. But I didn't stop until the cabin came into view. I burst through the door, slammed it shut, and locked it. Aaron was awake in the living room, white as a sheet. "You went out there, didn't you?" he said. I nodded, too breathless to speak. He pulled a flask from his pocket and took a long swig. "I told you sound travels weird, but it's not the hills. It's her." "Who?" I croaked. "They say a girl died here a century ago." Froze, trying to find her way back to town. She sang to keep herself awake. People still hear her, but only if she chooses you. "That's not real," I said, but even I didn't believe it. He nodded toward the window. "Then explain why she only sings for one person at a time. I've heard her too, before you. That night I didn't sleep. In the days that followed, Aaron suggested we cut the trip short. Said the repairs could wait. I agreed without protest. The night before we left, I heard her again. Only this time she wasn't outside. The singing was inside the walls. Soft, steady, closer. I packed everything before the sun came up. As we drove down the mountain road, I glanced back at the hills. The singing had stopped, but the tune still hummed in my head, and every now and then, back in my city apartment, far from the Appalachians, I wake up at 1:30 a.m., and I swear I hear her voice, just outside the window. Everyone in the town of Wither Hollow had the same rule. When the lights appear in the woods, don't follow them. They didn't explain much else, just that they show up sometimes. Faint, glowing orbs that flicker just beyond the tree line. And if you see them, you look away. You shut your door. You stay inside. I thought it was small-town superstition. You know how isolated places get. Stories grow legs. But I wasn't from Wither Hollow. I was a hiking vlogger passing through the Appalachians, staying in an old rental cabin on the edge of town for a few days. When I checked in, the owner, a pale woman with wiry hands, told me the same thing. If you see the lights, she warned, not blinking, turn off your camera and go inside. No matter what, the first 2 nights were uneventful. Cold, wet, foggy. Classic Appalachia. I recorded some B-roll of the surrounding woods, edited some backlog, and made hot soup on the cracked electric stove. On the 3rd night, I went out just before dusk to try and catch some golden hour shots. That's when I saw them. 3 pale blue orbs floated just inside the woods, maybe 40 feet in. They hovered mid-air, bobbing gently like they were watching me. My first instinct? Film them. I set up my camera and hit record. They didn't move at first, just hovered. Then they slowly began drifting deeper into the forest, like they were leading me. I hesitated, then followed. Every few minutes the lights would pause, wait for me to catch up, then move again. There was no path, just thick Appalachian undergrowth, damp moss, tangled roots. My boots sloshed through mud and fallen leaves. At one point I stepped over what looked like an old sunken grave marker, blank and moss-covered. The air grew heavy. The sounds of the forest dimmed. After maybe 15 minutes of chasing the lights, I came to a clearing. A perfectly round patch of dead trees stood in a circle around a stone well. The lights floated above it, spinning now, faster. My camera glitched. The LCD screen distorted, static, and flicker. Then it shut off completely. That's when I heard the first voice. It was my own voice. Keep going. Just a little further. It came from behind me. I whipped around. No one there. Then again, from my left. The same voice, almost there. I backed up toward the well, my breath shaking in the cold air. The lights spun violently now, leaving trails in the air. Then they shot into the well. Gone. Silence. I stood frozen, heart hammering, camera still dead in my hands. Then the woods screamed. It wasn't a sound. It was pressure, like the whole forest exhaled inside my skull. My ears popped. My knees buckled. Something scraped the ground behind me. I turned, but there was nothing there. And then, slowly, things started appearing. Figures. Dozens of them. All around the circle, they stepped out from behind trees. Thin, shadowy outlines shaped like people but wrong. Twisted limbs. Long necks, no faces. Just smooth skin where their eyes should be. And every one of them was whispering in my voice. You shouldn't have come. You followed them. You broke the rule. I bolted. I ran without looking back, branches cutting my arms, roots grabbing my feet. I fell twice, hard, but I didn't stop. The woods around me pulsed with movement, with breath, like I was running through the lungs of something alive. When I finally burst out of the trees and saw the outline of my cabin, I collapsed onto the porch. My pants were soaked with mud and blood. My camera, still in hand, was cracked. I crawled inside and slammed the door. The lights were outside. 3 of them. Hovering at the edge of the woods. They didn't follow me, but they stayed. All night. I tried watching the footage the next morning. The SD card was corrupted. Totally blank. No backups. No explanation. I packed up and left that day. Drove out of Wither Hollow and never looked back. But here's the part I haven't told anyone. Sometimes, in the footage I record now, my voice speaks before I do. Just for a second. A half syllable ahead, like it's remembering. Like it's still out there, following the lights. I was only supposed to be out there for a week. The forestry company hired me to help survey a stretch of unmarked land in a remote section of Appalachia, about 15 miles off any main road, and not even accessible by truck. We had to hike in, using old logging paths and outdated topographic maps. I'd done gigs like this before, but something about this place felt wrong the moment my boots hit the trail. No birds, no wind. Just the crunch of my steps and the distant drip of condensation sliding off heavy pine boughs. My partner Darren was a quiet guy, ex-military, not superstitious. But even he muttered, "Creepy-ass woods," under his breath more than once that first day. We set up camp near an old hunting shack that looked long abandoned. Its roof sagged in the middle and the walls were silvered with rot, but it was shelter from the cold and the ticks. That night, I woke up to the sound of something pacing around the shack. Heavy steps. Deliberate. Darren heard it too. We both lay still, waiting for whatever it was to pass. It didn't. It stood right outside the door. The next morning, there were no prints. No disturbed leaves. Nothing. Darren looked at me and said, "Let's get this done and get out." We started our grid survey mid-morning, mapping tree lines, noting soil density, taking drone photos. About 2 hours in, I saw something odd. Half-buried stones. At first I thought they were just part of the natural formation, but they were too uniform. Rectangular. Placed. I brushed off the dirt and found carvings. Not letters, symbols, spirals, sharp angles. One looked like an eye. There were at least 12 of these stones, all in a circular formation. Darren radioed me saying he found the same thing on his side of the grid. Graves. But they weren't normal. Shallow, oddly spaced, and the soil around them was bone dry like nothing had grown there in decades. That night, something screamed in the woods. Not an animal. Not a person. Somewhere in between. We didn't sleep. The shack walls shuddered like something was leaning on them. When I opened the door at dawn, a stone, one of those carved slabs, was sitting right on our doorstep. It hadn't been there the night before. We packed up. Fast. Hiking back should have taken us 5 hours. It took 12. The trail markers were gone. Our GPS units kept glitching, spinning in place or freezing. Trees looked wrong. Twisted in shapes I can't describe. Darren finally snapped, yelling into the woods, "We're leaving! We're not touching anything." The woods answered, not in words, but in mimicry. Something parroted his voice back, identical tone, same cadence, except from the direction we'd just come. We ran. We made it to the ranger station just before nightfall. We tried to report what we saw. The ranger, older guy with a stiff face, listened quietly. Then he said something that's haunted me since. "You didn't find anything, and you didn't see any graves. That land's not on any map. There's nothing out there." He handed us a map with the section we'd surveyed literally missing. Just blank space where the lines should be. "You boys sleep. Then head home." I checked our drone footage that night. Every photo past noon that day was corrupted. Static, distorted colors. In one of them, there's a figure standing near the graves. Just tall enough to be a man. But too long. Too thin. Darren doesn't talk about it. He left the job, moved to Arizona, deleted all social media. When I call, he just says, "Don't go back there." I won't. But sometimes I dream of that stone with the eye carved into it, and I wake up with dirt under my nails. It started with the echo. I'd been hiking solo through a stretch of the Appalachian Mountains that locals called the Hollow. No official trail markers. No maps showed it. Just a thin dirt path that veered off the main trail, winding down into the valley between two steep ridges. I wasn't supposed to be there. I knew that. Everyone at the diner that morning had warned me in that quiet, polite way mountain folks have when they're serious. One old guy even mumbled, "If you go down there, don't answer yourself." At the time, I laughed it off like they were playing some regional prank on the tourist. But I remember how none of them laughed back. The air changed the moment I stepped into the hollow. It got still, no wind, no bird song. The usual rustle of forest life just stopped like I'd walked behind a soundproof curtain. Even the sunlight filtering through the trees felt duller, like it struggled to reach the forest floor. I walked for maybe 20 minutes before I heard it. A soft voice, my own voice, say, "Hello?" I stopped dead. It had come from somewhere ahead, not close but not far. I hadn't spoken. I was sure of it. "Hello?" It repeated again. Same tone, same pitch, same rhythm I use when I'm uncertain but polite. I turned around slowly, scanning the trees. Nothing. I called out, "Who's there?" And 2 seconds later, in the exact same cadence, I heard, "Who's there?" I froze. It didn't echo. It answered. But wrong. Too perfectly timed. Like it had waited for me to finish before repeating the words. My skin prickled. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't an echo. Something was in those woods copying me. I started walking back the way I came, but the trail looked different. I couldn't tell if I'd taken a wrong turn or if the woods had shifted. The trees felt closer, leaning inward. And the longer I walked, the more I heard it. My footsteps mirrored a beat too late. My breaths echoed back from behind. My voice whispering short phrases I hadn't said aloud. Sentences I'd thought to myself, "I don't know where I am. I want to go home. I should never have come here." My heart was pounding. I broke into a run. Behind me, something followed. It didn't crash through the woods. It glided, silent but present. Every few seconds it would mimic my last words but twisted, slower, mocking. "I should never have come here," I'd whispered once, and then I heard, drawn out and warbled, "Should never come That voice wasn't mine anymore. I came to a clearing, circular, too perfect to be natural. The trees bent outward as if they were afraid to enter it. In the middle stood a structure made of piled stones and moss, like an altar or maybe a grave. On top of it lay an old, rotting backpack. It was mine. I don't know how to explain it. I'd bought that backpack 3 years ago on a different hike in Maine. It had a faded patch of a black bear on it and a melted zipper I'd tried to fix with a key ring. It was unmistakable. I stepped forward. My legs moved on their own. And then I heard it, just over my shoulder, less than 5 feet away. I remember this, but I didn't say that. I turned around fast, and for the first time, I saw it. A figure stood between the trees. Same height, same build, same clothes. It looked like me, but not exactly. The proportions were off. Its limbs slightly too long, joints bent too far backward. The face was mine, but stretched. Eyes too wide, mouth a little too still, like it didn't know how to move it unless it was copying me. We stared at each other. Then it smiled, not in a friendly way, in a way that said, "I know everything about you. I ran. Branches tore at my arms. I didn't care. I could hear it pacing beside me in the woods, matching my speed, my breath, my panic. I tripped and fell. Dirt filled my mouth. From behind a tree, it whispered, "You fell." I scrambled to my feet, spit the dirt out, and didn't stop until the trees thinned out and I broke back onto the main trail that the birds were chirping again. The wind moved through the leaves like it had been, holding its breath. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. When I got back to town, I didn't say anything. I looked in the mirror 100 times that night, just to be sure I was me. But something still feels off. Sometimes I hear footsteps in my apartment when I'm alone. I'll wake up in the night and hear my own voice whisper something I didn't say. Last week, my neighbor said she saw me coming home. Twice. Once in the morning. Once again, 5 minutes later, wearing the same clothes but not waving back when she said hi. And just yesterday, I found my backpack, the old one, with the bear patch, lying on my bed. I never brought it home, but it's here, and I don't think I came out of that hollow alone. My grandpa was the kind of man who spoke more with his eyes than his mouth. He lived in a crooked little cabin halfway up a ridge in the Appalachian Mountains, the kind of place where the stars feel too close and the trees seem older than time. He'd lived there all his life, never once leaving the region. Whenever I visited, he gave the same warning before bed. "Don't look at the trees after midnight, boy. Doesn't matter what you hear, just don't look." It sounded like mountain superstition, backwoods ghost story. I nodded every time, but I never really took it seriously. Until last week. I'd come up for a weekend visit. Grandpa had been sick, and Mom asked me to check on him while she was out of town. First night there, he barely spoke, just stared out the window toward the tree line. At one point, I asked if he wanted me to close the curtains. He snapped, "No. If you see them, at least you can choose to look away." I didn't press, but that sentence sat heavy in my chest all evening. Around 11:45 p.m., I woke to the sound of branches tapping against the cabin's tin roof. It was faint but rhythmic. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap. I figured it was wind or maybe an animal. The forest is alive up here. Things move at night. But then came the whisper, just outside the window, low and almost tender. "Come look." Just a peek. I froze. I hadn't been dreaming. The air was cold and I was wide awake. I stayed still, listening. Nothing followed. Then again, a little firmer. "We see you." I sat up slowly. The cabin's front windows faced the woods, about 50 yards away. The moonlight was bright, casting long shadows between the trees. Everything looked normal at first, but then I saw the movement. Not one figure. Not two, a dozen, maybe more. Just standing there, too still, lined up between the trunks like they'd been carved out of shadow and bone. I blinked, and they were closer. Just a few steps, but enough to notice. I turned away fast, heart hammering. My grandpa's warning played on a loop in my head. Don't look. Doesn't matter what you hear. But I'd already looked. I didn't want to wake him. I thought maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe it was my eyes adjusting to the dark, so I tried to lie back down. Pulled the blanket over my head like I was 6 years old again. But then the doorknob rattled. I heard the latch jiggle once, twice, like someone was trying it gently, testing if I'd left it unlocked. I wanted to yell out, but I couldn't move. Every hair on my body stood on end. Then I heard footsteps, bare feet, on the old wood porch. No shoes, just soft padding steps like skin on dry boards. A breath passed against the window glass. Then my voice whispered from outside, "It's okay. It's just me. Come see." My stomach turned. I hadn't said a word. I finally shouted for Grandpa. I heard his bedroom door swing open and his boots thud against the floor. He burst into my room with a shotgun and a face pale as ash. He didn't even ask what was happening. He just yelled, "Don't look out there. Get in the basement." He grabbed my arm and shoved me toward the trapdoor by the fireplace. I hesitated, still stunned. "Now, boy, you looked already. They know you." We went down the rickety wooden steps into the dark. He didn't light a lamp, just shut the trapdoor and sat on the top step, shotgun pointed upward. I could hear the wind pick up outside, but it didn't sound natural anymore. It sounded like whispering in the trees, like breath against bark. Then came the knocking. Not at the front door, not at the windows, on the walls, all around the cabin, slow, deliberate. From every side, Grandpa whispered, "Don't talk. Don't move. They're just trying to get you to respond." We sat in silence for what felt like hours. The knocks stopped just after 3 a.m. When we came back up, the front door was wide open. On the floor, someone, or something, had placed a bundle of twigs in the shape of a man. It was tied with twine, at the neck. The next morning, Grandpa made me pack up and drive back down the mountain. He said I couldn't stay another night, that once you've seen them, they don't forget your face. They're curious, they mimic, they play, but they're not human. I asked what would have happened if I kept looking. He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "You'd have gone out there, just like my brother did." I didn't know Grandpa had a brother. He never talked about him. But now I understand why he lived alone, why he always kept the fire burning, even in the summer, why every window had thick curtains and every night he'd check the locks 3 times. That was last week. I've been back home in the city. No trees around, no woods. But 2 nights ago, just after midnight, I heard something outside my apartment window. A knock. 3 slow taps on the glass. I live on the 5th floor. I didn't look. I haven't looked. But every night since, I hear it. And last night my phone lit up. An airdrop request from an unknown device. The file was named Come Look JPG. I didn't open it. I don't know how far the woods can reach, but I'm afraid they already found me. I first heard the knocking at 2:43 a.m. sharp, like clockwork. 3 soft, deliberate knocks, coming from directly beneath the floorboards of my bedroom. Not from the door, not from outside. From under the damn floor, I live alone, tucked up in a cabin way out in the Appalachians, far enough that I lose cell signal about 5 minutes up the ridge. It's the kind of place people dream about for peace and quiet. Except peace turns into paranoia real quick when you wake up to sounds coming from places they shouldn't. The first night, I froze in bed. My brain scrambled for rational explanations. Plumbing, tree roots, mice. But it didn't feel random. It felt intentional. 3 even knocks spaced just right, like a coded message. The next morning, I checked under the house. Crawled down in the mud with a flashlight. Saw nothing but dirt, spider webs, and the gnarled roots of the oak tree out back. I told myself it was my imagination. Maybe the house settling. Maybe the cold warping the boards. But the next night it happened again. Same time. Same 3 knocks. By the 4th night, I was sleeping with a crowbar by my bed and my boots on. It didn't stop. I mentioned it to one of the locals at the gas station, an old guy named Buck. Told him something was knocking under my house every night. He went pale. Not creeped out pale. Blood-drained pale. "Did you dig anything up when you moved in?" he asked. "No. Why? Any trees removed? Old stumps? There's a big oak, but I didn't touch it." He looked down at his coffee. "Don't disturb the roots. That's all I'll say." It was such a weird warning it made me even more paranoid. I started researching Appalachian legends, folk tales. Found stories about root people, things that live under trees and feed on the breath of those above. Of course, that stuff's never written in textbooks. Just old blog posts and threads from people who disappeared from the internet years ago. A week in, I borrowed a ground-penetrating radar scanner from a guy I found online. I told him I was checking for old septic tanks. We scanned the ground beneath the cabin. Sure enough, the scanner picked up a hollow chamber, round and deep, about 7 feet under my bedroom. But there was no old well there, no tank, nothing on record. So I dug. 2 feet in, the soil turned black and sour-smelling, like rotting leaves and metal. Jet, my dog, refused to come near it. He stood 30 feet back whining like he was watching me unearth a coffin. At 4 feet, I hit wood. Not natural wood. Milled. Flat. Like a door or a trap door. I stopped. Every hair on my body was standing up. I didn't want to open it. I didn't even want to look at it. That night, the knocking changed. It came from the hallway, then the bathroom wall, then the ceiling. It was moving. I barely slept. Every time I drifted off, something whispered just under the threshold of sound. My name. Just once. The next morning, Jet was gone. Door still locked. No tracks in the dirt. No barking. Just gone. I lost it. I went back out with a shovel, planning to bury whatever I'd uncovered, but the hole was already filled in. Perfectly. Smoothed over. Like I'd never touched it. That night, I nailed boards across the bedroom floor, piled furniture, slept in the truck. At 2:43 a.m., the knocking came again. This time from under the truck. Metal on metal. 3 hard bangs right beneath the frame. I peeled out of there and drove into town. I slept in a motel for 2 nights. No knocks. No whispers. I came back thinking it was over. But the house smelled different. Like wet dirt. And there were muddy footprints on the wood floor, coming from inside the closet. I keep that closet shut tight now. Taped and nailed. Still, every night at 2:43, I hear the sound of roots shifting. Wood creaking. My name being whispered like wind through leaves. And then, the 3 knocks. 2 nights ago, the knocking didn't stop after 3. It kept going. 4, 5, 6, and last night, it came from inside the closet. I didn't open it. I don't think I ever will, but something is living under that tree, under my cabin, beneath the roots, and it's getting closer. I should have trusted my gut the second I stepped onto the cabin's porch. Something about the way the wind moved through the trees didn't feel right. It wasn't natural. It was too rhythmic, like it was breathing. I had booked this remote Appalachian cabin as a retreat from my messy breakup and the constant noise of the city. The listing said it was deep in the mountains. No cell service, no internet. Just what I needed to reset. The place looked abandoned. Cobwebs framed the door, the wood was weathered and gray, and the windows were so dirty they barely let in any light. But the key was under the rock like the owner said. No lockbox, just a rusted-out old key under a rock shaped like a heart. Inside, the air was thick, not dusty like I expected, more like stale breath, like someone had been sitting in there silent for a long time. The furniture looked older than it did in the pictures. There were little things that didn't match the listing. The listing said queen bed. There was only a twin. Said updated kitchen. It had a rusted-out sink and a hot plate. Still, I convinced myself it was fine. Just old. Just quiet. That first night I couldn't sleep. The woods outside sounded alive. Not with animals, but with footsteps. Crunching leaves in a wide circle around the cabin, always staying just out of sight. I tried to peer out, but the windows were too dirty to see much, and I didn't want to open the door. The doorknob was cold every time I touched it, like it didn't belong to this place. Like someone else's hand had just let go. In the morning, I found something strange. A cup of coffee on the kitchen table. Still warm. I hadn't made any. I checked the fridge, the cabinets. Nothing. No coffee grounds, no machine. But the cup was there, steaming slightly on a coaster that hadn't been there the night before. It was chipped with the name Eli etched into the bottom. I told myself it was a glitch. Maybe the owner had been there recently and left it. Maybe it was just an old cup. But the coffee was fresh, and that night it got worse. Around midnight, I heard a door creak open. Not the front one, I had bolted that shut. This came from inside. I didn't even know there was another room. I followed the sound down a narrow hallway past the bathroom, and there it was. An old pantry door slightly ajar. I had checked it earlier. It was empty. Now it wasn't. Inside was a small bed, a twin like mine. A dusty journal sat on top. I opened it. Page after page of the same entry, written in frantic, slanted handwriting. He doesn't leave. Not really. He just waits until you think he has. I dropped the book and backed out. I locked the door with a chair and tried to sleep with the lights on. But the lights flickered constantly, like something was drawing power, and I swear the temperature dropped every time I closed my eyes. The next morning, I decided to leave. I packed my stuff, grabbed the keys, only they weren't where I left them. The heart-shaped rock was gone. I searched the porch, the floorboards, even inside the cabin. Nothing. I was trapped. That night I heard humming. Not outside, but inside the walls. A low male voice humming something old, tuneless. It grew louder near the pantry. I didn't go near it. Instead, I sat in the corner of the living room, clutching a flashlight. But even the beam flickered like it was struggling against something. I kept whispering to myself, trying to stay calm. But the humming turned into a voice. My voice. It started calling my name. Sam. Come see what I found. I froze. It wasn't in the walls anymore. It was right behind the door. The handle turned slowly. I didn't move. Couldn't. The door never opened. But something heavy leaned against it, breathing. Slow and steady. Then it walked away. I stayed up all night. When morning came, I cracked the front door open. It was sunny outside, birds chirping, peaceful like nothing had ever happened. I bolted for the woods again, following the same trail, hoping I could reach the ranger station. But the trail didn't go the same way. I ended up back at the cabin 3 times. Each time I left, I ended up standing in front of that damn porch. It was like the forest had bent around me. Inside, the coffee was there again. Hot. The cup had moved to the end of the table. This time, next to it sat a second cup. That night, I finally opened the pantry again. The bed was empty. The journal was gone. But the humming came back, louder, and the door shut behind me. I was trapped in there for hours, maybe longer. I banged on the door, screamed, cried. Then everything stopped. Total silence. The door creaked open on its own, but the cabin had changed. All the furniture was dust-covered, broken. The windows were shattered. Vines had grown inside. It looked like no one had lived there in decades, except the coffee cup was still there. Still warm. I ran again, blindly through the woods. I must have collapsed because I woke up on the steps of the ranger station. They found me shaking, barely coherent. When I told them about the cabin, one of the rangers looked pale. That place was condemned years ago, he said. No one's been up there since the old owner went missing. Ellie Carter. He went up there to get away from something. But they say it followed him. And it never left. I didn't tell them everything. Not about the voice or the cup. Or how the trail kept turning me around. When they took me back to collect my things, the cabin wasn't there. Just foundation stones, half swallowed by the earth. But right in the center, perfectly placed, was that same chipped coffee cup. Still warm. Still waiting. My brother Jack was the kind of guy who could disappear into the woods for days and come out with a grin and a dozen stories. He'd hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, slept under blizzards in Montana, and solo kayaked through Florida's backwaters. So, when he told me he was heading out on a solo trek across a stretch of the Appalachian Trail, I didn't think twice. He left on a Sunday. He was supposed to check in with me every 48 hours, just a text or a pin drop. Simple, reliable. But on Wednesday night, nothing came. Thursday morning, still nothing. I tried not to panic. Maybe his battery died. Maybe he lost signal. But by Friday morning, I filed the missing person report. The Rangers launched a search. Helicopters, dogs, the whole 9 yards. They found his tent, still staked. His boots just outside, food bag hung perfectly from a tree branch. Flashlight beside his sleeping bag, dead battery. But no Jack. Not a single footprint leading away, just gone. Then they found his phone. It was buried inside a hollow log about a mile from his campsite. No cracks, no damage, just dirt. Like someone had placed it there carefully. It was dry. Still had 12% battery. They gave it to me. There was one video. One I hadn't seen before. Time-stamped at 2:16 a.m., 2 days after he stopped responding. It starts with him inside his tent, whispering. The screen is dark, but you can hear the wind outside, fierce and unnatural. I know something's outside, he says. It's not an animal. It's walking in circles around the tent. Fast, too fast. There's a pause. Then we hear it. A high-pitched whistling sound. Not a tune. Just a long, rising shriek like wind being squeezed through a crack in a door. I thought it was a man. He whispers. But it's not. It's not breathing right. It doesn't sound real. Then something taps the tent wall. Rapid. Tap, 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 tap. Jack gasps. Fumbles with the zipper. The video cuts to static for a second. Then it cuts to him outside. The camera's pointed at his feet, moving fast. He's running. Branches snapping. His breathing ragged. He keeps whispering one word. Over and over. Mimic, mimic, mimic. Then the audio changes. We hear footsteps behind him, but they don't match his pace. They're faster and heavier. Suddenly, a voice calls out, Jack. But it's not his voice. It's mine, perfectly copied. My voice, saying his name. From the darkness. He stops, turns the camera toward the woods. We see nothing but black trees and shifting shadows. Then we hear it again. Jack. Help me, it's my voice. But it's wrong. Twisted. Drawn out like someone struggling to remember how words work. He starts crying. Sobbing. Then he screams. The kind of scream you only hear when something breaks inside a person. The camera shakes, falls, lays sideways on the ground. The image glitches. We hear one final whisper, not from him. Found you, and the video ends. The search team combed that stretch of trail for another week. Nothing. No signs of a struggle. No blood, no prints, just silence. I tried playing the video for other people. Most just said it was a hoax, that Jack faked it. Some kind of viral stunt. But a few, especially the old hikers, refused to listen past the mimic part. One guy in a forum messaged me privately and said, "Don't play it out loud. They learn through sound." I don't know what he meant, but 2 nights ago, I woke up to a voice calling my name outside my window. My voice. Whispering, "Help me." I live 5 states away from that trail. And now, every night I hear the same thing from somewhere in the woods near my house. Jack, Jack, come back? Only it's not Jack, and it never was. There's a town in the Appalachians that doesn't exist on any map, but I drove through it. It started with a wrong turn. I was on my way back from visiting my cousin in Asheville, cruising through the winding back roads of the Appalachians when my GPS glitched out. The screen went blank for a second, then rebooted with some weird interface I didn't recognize. Text in gray font on a black background. It said, "Recalculating route. Proceed to Ridge Hollow." I frowned. Ridge Hollow. I hadn't heard of it, and I'd taken this drive at least a dozen times. But the sun was starting to dip behind the tree line, and I didn't want to turn around and get lost in the dark. I figured it was a shortcut. About 10 minutes in, the road narrowed to a single lane. Trees leaned in unnaturally close. I cracked the window and immediately regretted it. The air smelled off, like wet earth, but also something metallic, like blood. There were no power lines, no signs, not even birdsong. Just my tires crunching gravel and the low hum of my engine. Then I saw it, a small wooden sign, hand-painted in faded red. "Welcome to Ridge Hollow." The town looked frozen in time. Old brick storefronts with flaking paint, a gas station with analog pumps, a church whose steeple leaned slightly to the left. Not a single person in sight, and yet every shop window had lights on. The gas station had a flickering open sign. A swing creaked slowly on a porch, moving as if someone had just stepped off. My stomach tightened. I pulled into the town square, heart starting to pound. It looked like any quiet Appalachian town, except too quiet. I left the engine running and got out. The moment my boots hit the pavement, I noticed something. The air was dead still. No wind, no bugs, no smell. I stepped into what looked like a diner. May's kitchen was painted above the door. A bell jingled overhead. It was warm inside, like someone had just been cooking. A fresh pie steamed on the counter. The booths were clean, plates set neatly on each table. But there was no one there. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. I turned to leave, but stopped cold. The pie, it was half-eaten now. I swear it was whole a second ago. I backed out fast, heart in my throat. I got back in my car, slammed the door, and put it in reverse. That's when I noticed something in the rearview mirror. A man standing behind the car. Except he wasn't quite standing. His legs were wrong, bent the wrong way, like a deer hit by a car. His head twitched, tilted to one side, watching me with pale, milky eyes. I floored it. Shot forward and took the first road out of town I could find. It curved hard, then dipped into a tunnel of trees so dense they blocked the sky. The GPS was still stuck on that strange screen. Proceed to Ridge Hollow. I was sweating now. I should have been out of that town in 5 minutes, but the road kept looping back. Every sign I passed read, "Ridge Hollow, 2 miles." Over and over, I drove until my gas gauge hit red. Finally, I stopped. Pulled over to catch my breath. That's when I heard it. A voice, my voice, calling out from the woods beside the road. "Hey, over here, I need help." It was me, my exact voice. Same tone, same panic. But I hadn't said anything. I locked the doors. Something knocked on my window. I didn't look. I just started driving again. I don't know how, but eventually the trees thinned, the road widened, and I hit pavement that actually looked maintained. My phone rebooted. Full signal. Google Maps popped up like nothing happened. But Ridge Hollow. It wasn't on the map. Not then. Not now. I tried searching it later. No results. No records. Nothing. And yet, every night since, my GPS glitches at exactly 11:11 p.m. Same screen. Same message. Proceed to Ridge Hollow. I haven't followed it again. But last night I got home from work and found something sitting on my kitchen table. A half-eaten slice of pie. Still warm. I should have known better than to follow them up the ridge. The invitation sounded like something out of a folklore book, handwritten, folded into quarters, and wedged beneath my cabin's front door. It said, "Gathering under the trees tonight." Come see what's remembered. No sender. Just those words, and a single hand-drawn symbol. 3 mountain peaks inside a circle. I'd been staying in a rented off-grid cabin deep in the Appalachians for a photography project. The locals were polite but distant, the kind that kept their eyes on their porches when you passed. I hadn't made friends. I hadn't even spoken to anyone since picking up eggs and gas 3 days prior. So who left the note? By sunset, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Curiosity can be stronger than caution, especially when you're isolated and bored. I packed a flashlight, slipped on my boots, and followed the crude trail behind my cabin, the same one that had always felt too worn for a game trail, but too hidden to be official. The forest changed as I climbed. Sounds dulled. The usual background noise, cicadas, rustling, owls, faded out. Trees clustered too tightly. Their trunks were crooked, like they'd grown around something in their way. I should have turned back when I noticed I hadn't seen a single animal, not even a moth near my light. Then I saw the torches, flickering amber in a clearing above, and silhouettes, people, at least 10 of them, standing in a wide circle. They wore robes, not white like cultists in movies, but heavy patchwork cloth, earth-colored and worn. One turned, sensing me. "You came," a woman said. Her face was lined, her eyes almost gray in the torchlight. "You felt it, didn't you?" I didn't speak, just nodded like I understood. It felt like I was dreaming, or like I'd stepped into a play already in progress. No one questioned me. No one asked who I was. They gestured for me to join the circle. I did. They began humming, low and steady like bees caught in a jar. One man scattered ash into a central fire pit. Another poured liquid, maybe oil, maybe something else, into a carved wooden bowl. The smell hit next. Earthy rot, iron, old soil. It felt ancient. Then they started chanting words I didn't know, in a language that scratched at the edge of my memory like something I'd heard as a child in a fever dream. That's when I realized there was someone, or something, inside the circle with us. Not visible, but there. A weight in the air, a shape in the space. The fire bent toward it, a hand brushed my back. I turned. No one was near me. Cold, dry fingers brushed my neck. Again, no one. My instincts screamed to run, but my legs felt locked. Every time I looked at the people around me, their faces seemed subtly wrong. Their eyes were too dark. Their lips never moved with the chant, and their skin cracked in places like tree bark. The woman who'd greeted me leaned in close and whispered, "Not everyone gets invited. You must have roots here. That's why it remembered you." "It?" I asked, finally speaking. Her smile was sad. "The thing that sleeps below." The fire blazed. The chanting reached a pitch that hurt my teeth, and then it stopped. Silence. Everyone turned toward the center. I followed their gaze. Something was rising. Slowly, pushing up from beneath the fire. The dirt cracked as if breathing. A noise came from the ground, a wet, clicking sound like bones rearranging. I ran. I broke the circle and bolted through the woods. Branches slapped my face. Roots grabbed my boots. The humming started again, this time from behind me, then beside me, then ahead. The trail was gone. The woods weren't the same. I should have reached my cabin in 5 minutes, but the path stretched, warped. I was in a place that didn't want me to leave. Then, lights. Not torchlight. My cabin's porch light. I slammed the door shut behind me and killed the lantern. I sat in the dark, heart pounding, staring through the window. Nothing followed. No chanting, no robed figures, but in the morning the invitation was back under my door. Same paper, same symbol. Only this time it said, "You broke the circle. It remembers."